All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk with Maggie and Lucy. Hi, I am Maggie. Hi, Lucy. I miss you. We are simply two older women who are passionate about teaching the young the way the late, great Kevin Samuel said that we should. And a couple times a week, we'd like to come on here with you all and just share our lessons learned from our 40 years of combined marriage experience. We are not here to convince anyone, but we are here for the women who prioritize marriage and family in your prime. So, Lucy, say hi to everyone and let us know what are we reacting to tonight.
Hi, Maggie. Hi, everyone. Come on in, like Maggie says. Okay, so before I talk about the article that I'm gonna be sharing at our tea event, I learned that if you're putting lime or lemon in your tea or any kind of beverage, you're not supposed to leave the lemon inside. You're supposed to squeeze it. And I'm saying this because I'm already giving myself up, because in my water, I have the little piece of lemon, but we're amongst friends. So right now we can do that. But in reality, I think that that's the case. So that's what you reminded us of, Maggie. And that was for tea. I don't know if it's for any beverage. So if you
You
want
know
to.
what? I actually asked my etiquette teacher on Monday, and she said you could leave it in. So I don't know everything. So you're totally fine. Like Lucy, you get a grade. But yes, it actually follows the rule with if you get any type of cocktail that has like a garnish inside, it's actually supposed to be enjoyed as part of the drink because it flavors the drink. So I was
Okay.
wrong, but we did have a question about setting the table with like a waste basket. That would not apply. If you're like at a crab cracking place, maybe. She said the only exception, and I know we're not here for etiquette, but you reminded me. I think it was Brianna asked. The only exception she said is sometimes, like if you're eating al fresco in France or any of these places where you're outside, it may be a little windy. Sometimes they have a little, I don't want to call it a wastebasket, but something to put things that could fly away. But ideally, it wouldn't be served with the meal service. So you are all set with the lemon.
Great, thank you. Um, so going back to the article, we had a beautiful retreat, a beautiful getaway this past weekend that included our young graduates and also wives. And, it's funny how life puts everything together. And all of a sudden, I get this article. I subscribe to Real Femme Sapien. She has a YouTube channel and she also has a website. So I subscribe to her website. And the title of this particular article is, Are You a Desirable Woman? Something like that. I can't remember the exact title. And it is something that we talked about this on our, we talk about it all the time, but on our weekend, we kind of treated each other about, to topics about being that desirable wife. And this article is really timely for this last event that we had.
I could not agree more. And speaking of our event, we've got some students in the class. We've got some alum in the class. Hello, Tara. We miss you all so much. Like Lucy said, we are still on our high. Who do we have here? Sin, King Sin saying evening. Just happened to get a notification on my phone for you guys and stop by. Congrats on making wives great again. Absolutely. This is our heart. So much so that our upcoming events are going to be heavily encouraged for wives to apply and participate because we have found our niche. All right. So, yes, usually we come in here and we are reacting to a video. So, I'm going to apologize in advance. I will read the article and then we'll pause and discuss it. Like Lucy said, this is from Real Femme Sapien. Hi, Allie. She is now expecting her second with her husband. I am also a fan of hers. This is her Substack subscription service. And I actually reached out to her and let her know that we would be reacting to this tonight. She sends her love and her support. She said she would be in the chat with us, but she's very pregnant. But she shared this on her channel. So I look forward to connecting with her one day when her family planning is complete. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We see y'all coming in. Hello, Jurgen is here. Auntie Jenny is here. So let me share my screen. Oh, let me give your two disclaimers still. Again, Lucy and I are here for the women who want to prioritize marriage and family in your prime. If you want to do something other than that, that's fine. You can just do it over there because you probably won't be happy over here. And this article, the link is in the description. I've also put the link to the article in the YouTube and the Facebook. So if you want to read it or share it, a lot of her content is behind the paywall, but she said this one is publicly available for now. So you're welcome to I was going to say watch it, to read it and share with others. All right. So let's go ahead and go in here. Let's see if you all can see. All right. So you can see here, this is from Femlosophy. Are you highly desirable? Are you a highly desirable woman for marriage? All right. So I love that. So let's see. From my observations of dating and mating in the past several years, I decided to list qualities that make a woman desirable to marriage-minded men. You do not have to meet everything on this list to be marriageable. There are broad strokes I am painting with here, and I have seen some pretty awful women get wifed up regardless of their qualities. We've all been to that couple's wedding we felt iffy about. Anyway, I'm making this list because there are women who lack confidence in dating and who shouldn't, while women who are arrogant in their standing need a fat slice of humble pie. All right, so let's unpack that for a minute. I love the fact that she took this on, and I love where she says, this is for women who are self-conscious and shouldn't be. And we've talked a lot about how pop culture doesn't promote marriage and family. And a lot of our students and a lot of young ladies feel alone sometimes, feel like there's something wrong with you. I know that feeling. That's why we created this community. If you know you've always wanted to be a wife and mother, and society and the modern world is telling you to do otherwise, you can kind of feel like, I don't know, should I be chasing the bag when maybe the only bag you're familiar with is a diaper bag? I'm making it up. But I love that she put this together. So hopefully it's something that'll be helpful for you as we break it down. What would you add, Lucy?
I also love that she said, hold on, let me just go back to my notes. The fact that because there are women who lack confidence in dating and who shouldn't, while women who are arrogant in their standing need a fat slice of humble pie. And unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of these women that think that they are so high that they're asking for all of these in a list of characteristics, where if they were, out there in the real world, they would probably be less than average at best. And unfortunately, social media has given them this sense of being tens when they are not. And it's because they get all the attention, whether it's good or bad, they still get that attention.
Yes, ladies. And we're going to go into the article now. I think she's got about 12 bullet points, but Lucy is right. And we've talked about this. Attention is not the same as intention. And Lucy has said this as well, too. Life has a way of humbling all of us. So if you think you're all big and bad, that's fine. You can do whatever you want to. But over here, we know that men are the ones that control relationships. We're the ones who control access to our bodies. But find a way to make yourself Mrs. So-and-so without a man. I don't know any way to do that, but that's just me. So like she said, we can humble ourselves or life will humble us. So let's go in and see what we can learn. All right. So here's her first point. She says, your biological parents are married to each other. Your mother is loved and your father is respected. It's great if your mother is remarried and you have a lovely stepfather, but it is not the same quality of parenting as an intact two parent household. And you will find this out when you have challenges in marriage, should you go on to marry. So let's unpack that one right now. We're all products of our environment and we don't have any control over the family that we're born into. But it saddens me that coming from an intact two parent family now has become kind of like an ancient relic. Like there's something odd if you grew up that way, and people kind of, take pot shots at you like you're some type of spoiled creature when that used to be the norm. And I love how she said, if you decide to marry, and when those challenges come, not if those challenges come, because marriage is work, you will remember the example. This is one of the things that I tell the boys, make sure she comes from a good family. It doesn't matter what she looks like, you got to look at her. But make sure she comes from a good family. Why? Because as life has its ups and downs, I want you and your future wives to have an example of working through challenges together, going through those ups and downs, not throwing in the towel and saying, oh, I can't take it anymore. And I'm saying this as a divorcee, but it's really important that we don't realize how much we learn without even realizing we're being taught. That's my example. And Lucy got to meet Nana and Papa. We had a nice little dinner when she was here, and it stays with you. What would you add, Lucy?
It is because they're the models that you follow when, especially when things are going the wrong way, and how your mom and dad talk about it. They share the information with you, and you see them staying together all throughout the good, the bad, the ugly, the uneventful. So again, it's important to see that example so you learn that that's usually the should be the norm in your relationship knowledge. We see all of these young ladies, and maybe and also young men that come from single parent homes. They don't know how to handle being with a spouse for more than a couple of years, because they think that the minute a little thing goes wrong, then they get up and run, instead of, no, you stay throughout the hardest times, because in the end, once you're 70, 80 years old, you're going to go back and look and say, remember those years that we were just having these horrible, I don't know, situation, and we went through it, and then we stuck through the hardest part of our lives. And it's harder to be alone dealing with some really hard times than to have that partner that will support you, or you'll support them when things are going not as expected.
So true. And Rodney says marriage requires a certain amount of physical and emotional work ethic. I like that. So, ladies, are you lazy? Do you give up easily? Maybe you're not cut out for marriage, and not everybody is a wife. So, you got to really ask yourself. Let's see if we can grade ourselves on these. All right. I think she's got about 12. So, you don't have to tell anybody, but are your biological parents still together and married? Let's go back in. All right. This one, doom, 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 hit a nerve with me. You're a size 6 or smaller. Let's unpack this one. Another good metric is 20% body fat or lower. This is just a metric for dating. If you're very athletic, you may want to put on some fat for childbearing once you're married. Cross that bridge when it's baby season. Athletic women can typically get pregnant just fine. I just want to be clear, I'm not advocating for fitness model physiques, just a regular, healthy, fertile size. Looks matter to men. Sorry. You can still get a husband if you're a larger woman. However, you're not setting yourself up for success in marriage and motherhood by setting your bar for health at overweight. Fit people tend to want to be with other fit people. If you want a fit husband, you'll have to be that. The good news is fit men don't ask that you have abs. They just ask that you're healthy and care to maintain it with diet, cardio, and or resistance training. All right, so let's unpack this one, ladies. Let's tell the truth. Are you fit? And you can argue, size six or smaller. I don't really get into that. Y'all know this is a struggle for me, but she brings up a good point, especially when it comes to having a family. Ladies, having children takes a toll on your body. And all I will say is you want to try to be your healthiest before you get pregnant. And, everything that comes with that. Every pregnancy is different, every woman is different. But let's just tell the truth, ladies. Men look at that, and I think there's something primal about it, especially when you're young. When you're old and life has happened and things get a little softer, you may get a little fluffier. That's normal and natural. But when you are looking for marriage and you're still in your youth, we call it your prime for a reason. It should be your prime fitness. Everything is firing on all the cylinders. At least it should be. So, also, like she said, if you want a man to keep up with his physique, are you asking for something that you are not offering? So you got to ask yourself that. And why would the man that you want less for himself and you get the benefit? So, what would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and I'm glad that she said that it's, that part of that physical aspect is for the childbearing uh, part. Again, the younger you are, the easier it is to maintain your physique. So again, and that's also an indication for a man whether you can be disciplined with your body, with what you eat, with how you maintain that physical strength. It also shows consistency. Are you consistent on saying, yeah, I'm going to be fit and will maintain that, you know, throughout my youth? Because again, once you are pregnant or perimenopause or menopause, it is much harder to lose the weight. So weight maintenance is best. And if you're fit young, there's that thing, it's called I think it's uh, there's that fitness memory where your body responds better even when you're older to workout or a diet, because it remembers when you were younger how fit you were, how great you looked, and you're going to be able to not maybe look like what you looked like in 20 years when you were 20 years old, but at least you're not going to be at a morbidly obese age where your body is going to start hurting your knees, your ankles. You're going to start, there are those comorbidities that happen when you are overweight.
Ah, so true. So Quasia's saying her parents are married, but she's not a size six. She's keeping score publicly with us. We got Neo Moses in the house. He says, anytime I see the lives with you two, I just welt up because only a few will change for better following wisdom. I appreciate you two ladies. May God protect you both. Thank you for the blessing. I appreciate that. And Jurgen is giving overweight a thumbs down. So ladies, the men are telling you, and you can decide again, we are not here to convince you. We are just sharing our perspective, but the men are saying what's important to them if you want marriage. If not, you can do your own thing. That's totally fine. All right, let's go back in. So that was number two. All right, let's see what else she has. Oh, you are fertile and your cycles are regular. All right, this matters for babies and for the men that want to have them. But above all, it should matter to you as a woman who wants children. If you cannot conceive for biological reasons, that's a separate conversation. Even so, it's still essential to understand and establish your baseline for a healthy endocrine system, endocrine rhythm. For now, infertility affects only a minority of women in their childbearing years. I've been a regular in my lifetime and I've been able to have kids just fine. Don't freak out if your norm is not the norm for other women. All of our bodies are different and cycles can vary between 21 and 35 days, possibly a few days longer. If I posted my cycle variation, people would very much speculate about my fertility, but again, I gestate and labor fine. Know your normal and get it verified by a primary care provider if you think it's off. When I say regular, I mean regular for you. All right, ladies, and again, we are not doctors here. Everybody's body is different. But again, this just goes to healthy as far as what you can control. And here's the thing, ladies, tell the truth. Men who marry, 9 times out of 10, they do that because they want a family of their own. They want an intact family under their own roof that they can impart the wisdom that they have lived and accumulated over these years. So a lot of times women think, I like you and you like me, and we're just going to look into each other's googly eyes forever. The way men think, I don't have to marry you for that. Tell the truth. That's the modern world that we live in now. So, if you also want marriage and the men are the ones that offer marriage, you have to really think about, do you want children, and are you able to, and are you in the best shape physically and maybe even physiologically to offer that in return for the man protecting and providing for you? What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And also think about the young, if you're a young wife, there are easier ways to spot whether there's going to be a possibility of you having a problematic pregnancy. For me, all my cycles were regular. I was the most perfect person and I was infertile. So again, the younger you are, the younger you start keeping track of, your own body. And again, fitness is a lot, because if you keep fit, then you can toss that aside. That is not because you are overweight or you're morbidly obese. It's because of other reasons. So again, I think that it's also important for young women to understand their biological, their biology works, and keep track of your monthly cycle, and just be particular with that, because again, that's another thing that men look at. Is she detailed about those little things? Is she detailed about how her body works? And that gives them, a vision of you being as detailed when they have children with you. So again, those are little things that they start seeing, and it's like, yeah, yeah, she might be marriage material. She's very particular. Can she help me with my business, as particular as she is? So again, they start putting together all those pieces to make that one woman, whether to make that decision whether they're going to marry her or not.
Such a good point. Rodney says the pattern of physical fitness is also beneficial to childbearing and longevity as well. Yes, so ladies, so the 30,000 foot view, ultimately you want to be as healthy as possible. I see someone on Instagram says, do it for yourself and your man. Of course. However, if we're talking about marriage and men want a family, talking about our, ability to conceive, it is important. And, since Lucy shared, I'll share. I was the opposite. I had some irregularity and I've struggled with weight, but we were able to conceive quickly, easily, and I was able to carry to term and deliver naturally. But on paper, kind of like femme sapien, I was kind of like, okay. But there's some things that are out of your control. All we will say is there are some things that are in your control, ladies. And I'll just say this before we go back in. Did you notice how she said that infertility issue is usually not for women in their childbearing years? And again, I am not a doctor, but I was talking to my man, which we have retired, mean old Mister. He has a new name. It's Mr. President. If you know, you know. Shout out to the finishing school. But he was saying how there just seems to be this, like, how do you say, lack of urgency with this new generation. When we were coming up, and I'm not saying you need to get married and have kids by the time you're 21, but we were moving with a purpose. It was really unheard of that women were waiting intentionally after 35 and 40 and 45 trying to have kids. This is a new thing. So all of this that you're hearing, young ladies, about maybe infertility and all these things, dare I say, and I'm not a doctor, if you do that in your prime years, you will probably have less issues than if you try to get all the planets to align when you're 40 and then try to raise a, what else was I going to say? The childbearing years and raising the kids. There was some other point that I had, but let's go back into it. All right.
Wait, and another thing,
Okay.
children will also appreciate you for having them younger than older. Because again, when you're older, your stamina, the way to do things, even though you have wisdom, you're not going to be able to play in the yard with them, or do things that when your young body can do it. They're going to remember those times. I know one. I used to have a coworker that her parents had her in their mid 40s, and she said, I will never forgive my parents for having me so late in the age, because they were 70 and she had to be taking care of them like they were their children. So again, that age disparity between child and parent makes a huge difference. I don't know if, I mean, maybe she was like an outlier, but that also stayed in my mind. I'm going, I never thought about the children resenting their parents for having them so early in life, that now the child is having to take care of them, and that's all they know about their parents.
Yeah, I went to school with a boy whose parents had like really salt and pepper hair, like when we were in elementary school, and everybody thought those were his grandparents. But yeah, y'all can do what you want to, but we're just trying to. Nature is the way it is for a reason. All right, let's go back in. I think that was number three. Somebody help me keep score. You all can score yourself. So, ladies, are you healthy reproductively? Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'll come back to it. Number four, you resolve conflict with men well. Basically, if you're a bipolar disorder chick or have PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, you probably don't resolve conflict well. It happens. Life's rough. Here are some signs you resolve conflict well with men if you do. Men have told you that you resolve conflict better than most women. Excuse me, you don't interrupt men while they speak and take their thoughts to completion. You seek to avoid nagging. Shout out to the ungrateful wife we reacted to last week. You are slow to anger. You are quick to forgive past transgressions with men and start anew. You don't curse men out when angry. You take their words at face value instead of reading into them. How could you say that? You offended me. You take accountability for your contribution to conflict. You sincerely apologize to men when you are wrong, not, I'm sorry if I made you feel bad. I love this one, ladies. This is a big one. So I'll ask you to ask yourself, what feedback have you gotten from the men that you are interested in that were properly vetting you about the way you resolve issues? Have you been told you have a temper? Are you hot headed? Are you always looking for a fight? Are you always offended? Do you always feel like you have to be on the defensive? Or can you listen to what's said? Can you take feedback and say, you know what, you're right, I can do better in that area? Have you been told? One of the things Mr. President tells me is you take feedback really well, Maggie. Even Lucy said, Maggie, you're a lot, but you listen when we tell you stuff. So ask yourself, that's a good indication of how you're going to be over the long term. Because we talked about this, ladies, when men consider wives for marriage, because men are the ones who ask, they're not just looking at the behavior right now. This translates over the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years. So if you're popping off of everything, he's going to say, do I want to live with this for the next 50 years? And the answer is probably no. So for those of you who are like, well, I'm really a good person when you get to know me, you don't have that kind of time. He's not going to invest to see if you can control yourself with just, one bad customer service experience. And what I was going to say about the other one with the fertility, then I'll come to you, Lucy. When Lucy was talking about, do you take care of your body? Ladies, this is important. This is a life skill, an adult skill. Stay on top of all of your medical checkups. They're going to change as you age. When you get older, you're going to have to look at different things in different parts of the body. But if you are, regularly handling those things, it says a lot, like Lucy said, about how you're going to help take care of him and his appointments, because that's important, as well as when you have children, just managing all of that stuff from medical, dental, vision, all of that. It's a lot. Ladies, you have to be useful. You just can't show up and look cute. That doesn't do anything for a man who doesn't have time. All right. What would you add, Lucy?
I like this part because I on the retreat, on the weekend event that we had, I remember saying, it's important to take men how they tell you things. If you start saying it's not what you say, it's how you say it, it's already a turn off, because it's like, men are going to tell you straight up what they want, what they think, and it's okay to listen to that. I think in my example, I put my dad as an example. Engineers are pretty straight, matter of fact. They will tell you, I know that as the minute I walk in, if I've gained 5 pounds, he will tell me, oh, you know what? Maybe you need to go walk a little longer, or, work out. Have you been working out? And it's okay. And I take it, and it's like, oh yeah, dad, I've been doing this, doing that. But I don't take it as, oh my God, he called me fat. No, because you know what? That's part of taking accountability. I know I like eating. I used to work out so hard when I was younger that I've come to really not like working out, because it takes, discipline and consistency, and you got to watch sometimes what you eat, and you got to, now that you're older, the importance of lifting weights because of your osteoporosis, it's so important. So those are things that you need to keep in mind to keep you healthy throughout your older life, however old you are. So again, men are men, and we got to appreciate that they are so straightforward. However they tell us the thing, they wouldn't tell us if they didn't care. They will let us run, around and create our own chaos. And if they don't tell us anything, it's because they don't care. If they mention something, is that they always have you in mind, and they will tell you things to make you better.
Such a good point, ladies. And, I'm going to come to what you all are saying in the comments, but Lucy is right. We've talked about this. You can get offended if you want to, but what's going to happen is that man is just going to stop talking. And then you're just going to figure it out if he stays around. Usually, when you have a man who's just like, yeah, do whatever you want to do, eat whatever you want to eat, drink as much as you want to drink, sleep or don't sleep, doesn't matter, run out in traffic and run around in the street, he doesn't plan to keep you around for the long term. So the men that are hard on us are the ones who really love us. I know my dad will just call me. My man will be like, what are we doing? And you know what? It's the truth, ladies. All right. What does Tara say? Sweet Tara says, I didn't realize until we started having kids, but 35 is considered geriatric pregnancy. Lots more visits and checks to ensure a safe pregnancy. Yes, let's talk about this one. Ladies, Tara is right. I married at 25, but we waited on having kids for a while, and we had them. We planned them, and thankfully I was able to conceive quickly, but 32 and 34, because I wanted to avoid the geriatric pregnancy. And if you don't know, when you get pregnant, there's all these routine checkups that you go through when you're having a baby. If it's your first one, it's really exciting. But if you're over 35, you can double that. And if you don't like going to the doctor, if you don't like getting stuck with stuff and, all of these tests and making sure all that's done, I highly encourage you to go ahead and have it in your prime. And let's face it, men who want a family, they don't want to take the long way around the mountain. It's easier for them, and it makes more sense for them to find someone who's young and fit that can do it easily if that's what you all want. So those of you all that are 35 plus still saying, well, I'm healthy, biologically, the way our bodies look at it, we have been able to carry for about 20 years at that point. So it's really on the inside, our body baby making has been kind of coming down the mountain. So just really think about that, ladies. All right. Jurgen says a quarrelsome masculine woman is nauseating to him. We hear you loud and clear. Rodney says, I hate when I, as a man, was criticized by my ex because of the tone of my voice. Ladies, you haven't been around a real man if he hadn't just shot it to you straight. And you can figure it out later. Y'all know one time in a row over here. Clue Studio is here. Absolutely. Auntie Jenny says, I grew up in a two-parent family. They divorced and I had fantastic hands-on stepfather until he died. He taught me so much on my young adult years, especially about finance and how to be a lady. Okay, stepdad. The Condemned says, just came back from the gym. Are we talking about health and fitness? Let's go. Yes, Auntie Jenny says there's single women of my age with no children, never been married, but they're lonely. I guess they enjoyed their youth, and hey, people can do whatever they want to. Rodney says accountability comes from many different sources, and we all need that. Auntie Jenny says, ladies, know your worth. I was only able to have one child, so I fostered. I'm a great stepmom, auntie, and granny, and you have to be okay with where you are. All right, let's go back in. I think we were up to number 4 or 5. I can't remember, but ladies, grade yourself. Let's keep going on. All right, so her next point says, you have a strong relationship with your father. He's not afraid to tell you that you suck when you do. He gives you honest, loving feedback when you're acting poorly or think you're good at something you're not. He calls you regularly to catch up on your life and celebrate your achievements. You can call him at a moment's notice when experiencing challenges. He shows up when you can't count on anyone else. You have no doubt he would give his life for you if he had to. I absolutely love this one. And, because we love men here, I love singing the praises of men and fathers. And my dad is traditional masculine African, Mufasa kind of man, but I know how proud he is of me. And Lucy says I have his smile, but I remember when I would have questions, as an adult about decisions or finance or whatever, insurance, I could call my dad and just without even thinking about it, just pick up the phone. And now he's aging and everything, and sometimes I'm more in the parent role, but ladies, men really look at the relationship that you have with the other men in your life, starting with your father. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And my husband, seeing my husband have such a great relationship with my dad is just something that I see. It's so joyful for me because it could be different. And my dad relies on my husband to find some things about life because he trusts him, so they trust each other, and I see that. And before I met my husband, my dad would, he was the person that would get me out of trouble all the time. He was the person who would, yeah, I wouldn't get into a lot of trouble, but the little bit of trouble that I get into, he would get me out. He was there for me and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it is true that if you can have a conversation with your dad, it's just such an easy feeling. Thinking about that, we're not going to have him for too long. It's heartbreaking, but we can say that, yeah, we enjoyed our relationship, the father-daughter relationship.
Yes, it looks like Lucy did get in trouble. I'm sure there's a story there. The International Quiet Storm is here. He says if she has father issues, it's a huge red flag. It shows she is not receptive to authority, discipline, or structure. Ooh-wee. Yeah, ladies, it's true. Yeah, I'm laughing. I want to know, but we'll talk about that another day. And thank you for sharing, Quasia. But yes, it's true, ladies. And, again, these are the things, and the men in the chat are chiming in. So I would just say this, young ladies, hopefully you have a good relationship with your father. But if not, whatever you do not badmouth him. That man gave you life. And this is what I tell ladies to say because words are important. I'm not telling you to lie, but I am saying that if for whatever reason you don't have a relationship with your father, say it in a way that you wish it were so. For example, it's really unfortunate, he hasn't been in the picture for a long time. I've reached out, but unfortunately, he didn't reciprocate. So maybe one day we'll reconnect, but right now he's not as present as I would like. Something like that. Make it your own, as opposed to, oh, he's a piece of, what, good riddance to him anyway. That right there, warning, warning, warning to men. All right, so have some humility, have some tact. We don't know everything, but you can explain it with grace. All right. What does Jurgen say? Women should always be significantly younger than men due to the different developmental phases. Lucy and I both support marrying older because it's hard when you're the same age. It's doable, but you're going to have to wait. All right, let's go back in. All right, I don't know what number that was, but y'all can grade yourself. Okay, ding, ding, ding. All right, go ahead and jump out the window now. You are 24 or younger. This is not at all to suggest that you marry an older man. I have to say this because the internet is ridiculous. We'll explain that in a minute. I am saying that the younger you are, the more beautiful, fertile, and less jaded you tend to be. Of course, you can find love at any age, but women tend to have the highest quality and quantity of options of men in their youth. It's not a red pill talking point. The longer you live, the more embittered people tend to become as the ways of life batter against them. This is true for both men and women. I've distilled this down to the phraseology of being your most beautiful and least jaded. It's a good place to be, meaning you have all the cards for modern dating. Ladies, this is just facts. I'm not even going to belabor this point. Even me, Lucy and I had this conversation this weekend. We are finally seeing what the men are seeing. We are finally seeing what the men have been talking about all along now that we're dealing with women and trying to help them. But I'll be very honest with you, when I talk to younger women, when I coach younger women, they do what I say and then come back and say, okay, Miss Maggie, I tried it and this is what happened. Good results or bad results, but they at least listen. Often, but not always, when I talk to older women, they want to explain back all the reasons why that won't work. That's fine. You don't have to do anything that I say. I don't know why you're asking me, but if you don't intend to do it, just do your own thing. So here's the point, ladies. I'm going to tell you what Mr. President said. For me, my new cutoff is 28. I won't be taking any coaching for anybody older than that. Here's why. This is what Mr. President said. If you met the man of your dreams tomorrow, it's 3 years before you have a child. You're going to date for a year. If everything goes perfect, you get engaged. Then you know you want this big wedding, so you're going to plan that for a year, most people. So now we're into year 2. And then if you get pregnant on your honeymoon, then a year later, the baby comes. So 28 can become 31 just like that. And that's what a lot of times women don't realize. These years start to rack up the longer you let it go. And for me, 28 means you have been an adult for 10 years doing whatever you want to do. That's fine. Have it your way, Burger King. But if you didn't prioritize marriage and family when you were in your prime, it is exponentially harder for you. So my cutoff is 28. She's saying 24 or younger. So if you want marriage, you really need to consider, do you really have all the time that people are telling you you have? I would beg to differ. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. I mean, life, makes you jaded. The longer you wait to have that relationship, the longer you're probably going to be ending up with the wrong man. And then as you get older and start dating, as you're older, you're going to put all those bad relationships as part of who you are. And that makes you jaded. And the reason why younger is much more desirable, it's because you haven't gone through that series of bad relationships that have made you see life much differently. And again, with modern women, with the modern world, I hear these older women telling the young women, enjoy your youth, don't settle down, because you're only young once. And it's like, well, you're asking them to postpone their most fertile time for later. And then no, it's not going to happen, because men right now, they are listening to what women are telling them. They're saying, you know what, you're telling us not to even reach out to you, we're going to leave you alone. And women are suffering right now because men have kind of checked out. They're going overseas to Eastern countries to find that traditional woman. And the modern women here, I think that there was a report saying that by 2030, either 40% of the modern women were going to be single and childless. That is an incredibly scary stat. Oh, thank you, The Quiet Storm. Younger women are more receptive to learning and coaching. 28 is a solid cutoff number. Let the older women who have excuses fend for themselves.
Well, I don't think there's anything else I need to say, but thank you so much for the $10. We appreciate the support, especially from the men. I see you all coming in the chat. Thank you so much. But let's go back in and see if we can finish these up. I don't know what number we're on, but hopefully you all are rating yourself if marriage is what you want. All right, the next one she says is, "You are beautiful." Beauty is available to most women through youth and a healthy lifestyle. And then there's being in the top 20% of beauty. This is probably you if you've done any modeling work or won a beauty pageant. Do not get discouraged if this is not you. I'm only pointing out that these rare gems have cards in their favor. You can still be the healthiest and most beautiful version of yourself, even if you've never been in the top hierarchies of female beauty. Get married and have children. You have less leverage than those women, which is fine. That's life. Ha ha. I promise most husbands aren't demanding models for wives. They want someone easy on the eyes who will age well for the most part. I absolutely love this, ladies. And you all hear me say I am happily average. Argue if you want to. You can say I'm a 10, you can say you're a 10 or whatever. But the point is this, I know I'm not a knockout. I don't, people don't crane their neck when I come in. I'm better in person, but I try to do the best with what I have naturally. And did you hear what she wrote, what she said when she said, your beauty is going to be at its best when you have youth and a healthy lifestyle. So what I want to emphasize is this, especially young ladies that are doing all kind of unnatural things to their bodies, thinking that's beauty. Youth is beauty in and of itself. The younger version of me is beautiful. The younger version of Lucy is beautiful. We're still beautiful as we age, but youth just kind of has that thing that's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's we're all attracted to it, and a healthy lifestyle. So, if you're not exceptionally beautiful, that's not going to preclude you from getting married. Most married women are in that average bell curve. I would argue it might be harder for a lot of exceptionally beautiful women. So don't worry about that because, like she said, the men just want someone healthy that they think is attractive. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. Youth by itself is beautiful because if you think about it, you have your skin is plump. There's, you're just it would God made us that way for a reason. That's the time that you're going to be the best to attract that man that's going to be your husband. In fact, beautiful women are I could probably, bet that they are miserable when they're older and if they didn't get married because they leveraged that youth for so long that they thought that youth was going to get them everywhere, no matter when and where. Now they're the ones saying, oh, now we're invisible to men. But they weren't invisible when they were 20, 25. So, and now those are the ones saying, that men are uh, I want to say are there's a word for men that like younger people. They're calling them that just because they men know that youth just covers all of these different things, including beauty. You don't have to be, an astonishing looking woman, but just your youth is going to make you beautiful to the man that's meant for you. So again, sometimes those women that have done modeling work or want beauty pageants, they think they're going to have that um, card to pull until they are older, and those are the ones that you see getting BBLs, getting their face stretched, their ears go back here to look as young as they were, when they were 20. So again, they are the ones that suffer in the end because they thought that that beauty was going to get them somewhere and didn't.
Such a good point. I absolutely love that. And ladies, I will just say this. One of the benefits of getting married or pairing up when you're young is even as you age, your husband, your man will remember that younger version of you. So he will see a side of you that others don't see. And I think that's very sweet and very beautiful. All right, let's go back in. I see y'all are coming in hot in the comments. I don't know what number we were up to, but let's go through and see what else she has on her list. You're financially literate. You value hard work and paying for things outright instead of putting them on a credit card. You have the wherewithal to work during college or find creative ways to keep your student loans low. Perhaps you've forgone college to pursue a small business instead. You prefer bargain shopping to luxury shopping. If you luxury shop, you've worked to be able to buy the nice things you have with wisdom and discernment. So, yes, ladies, I don't know where people are thinking people are just balling out of control, but men expect us, even men with resources, believe me, they expect you to be accountable for that. You have to demonstrate that if I give you resources, if I give you a budget and I start asking questions, you're not just going to be blinking fast and slow, or that's going to be the last time that you're going to get those resources. And first, they look at how you deal with your own resources. Do you have to be perfect? No, but you absolutely cannot be reckless. What would you add, Lucy?
In fact, if a man sees you coming to them, being an advertiser to all of these, designer stores, they're going to say, that's high value, not high value, but high maintenance. And I really don't want to deal with that because, we don't know what their finances are by her buying that Birkin bag or Louboutin shoes that are the most painful, uncomfortable shoes ever. But just because you can brag about having that red bottom, you buy $980 shoes for what? Just to show that you have them? I'm sorry, it's crazy making because you're putting pockets in people that really don't care about you. They just want your dollar. So again, this thing about luxury, anything, if you look at TikTok and Instagram, most of these women, it's actually they recycle that information and they make those TikToks make you believe that they got that, and they go back and return those items to those stores. So again, it's all fake. It's all fake. And the more they see you wearing those high designer things, the men are going to say, yeah, no, that I don't want to deal with that. Or if they have the means, that's how they're going to entertain you, just by giving you things. And then in the end, they're going to find that wife, that woman that's going to wife them. And they're going to say, yeah, take on all the stuff that I gave you, leave me alone, and I will be happy with my wife over here.
Hard to hear, but it's true, ladies. Okay, I'm going to put myself on the hot seat. So I've got this weight loss goal. And when I get to my goal, I wanted to do a photo shoot with some red bottoms. So forgive me. In my mind, I have this vision. But the point is that my life every day? No. Y'all know I'm an old Navy kind of, I'm just a mom. We have moments where we do fancy things, but that's not every day. All right. So be respectful and take care of the finances. Be financially literate. All right. Let's go back in. All right, you have character. This one is my favorite. I forgot where we are on the score, but how are you all doing? You have character. Delayed gratification doesn't unnerve you. You prefer playing the long game for the most worthwhile things in life. You are kind to people who serve you. Repairman, wait staff, phone representatives. You donate your time to your community through volunteer work and fundraise for good causes. You have the grit to weather storms because you have optimism for the future. This one is pretty much my favorite. Ladies, all of that other stuff is great, but if you're not a woman of good character, if your word doesn't mean anything, if you change who you are based on who you're around, if you're not honest, if you don't have a good reputation, if people are kind of sketchy about working with you, to me that's a non-starter. So that's something that's 100% in your control, but ask yourself, what do others say about you when you're not around? What would you add, Lucy?
I am so sorry about the red bottom shoes. I want to see you in that picture with those red bottom shoes. Anyway, yeah, I think that good character says it all. That man is going to, how we talk about maybe test you when you're younger, give you some assignments to see if you follow through with what you say you're going to do. That is so absolutely important, because again, they think about long term. Do I want to have this woman that doesn't keep her word be the mother to my children? So again, those are things. Character is so important, and that goes both ways. You want a man with character, and you want to be a woman with character, so you can make a great couple and raise good character value children, and not little savages.
Lucy is on one. Oh my goodness, I love that. Yes. So this is just going to be a photo shoot. Am I going to be walking around in red bottoms? Absolutely not. I have also heard they're very uncomfortable, but in my mind, I have this whole like, anyway, but we'll see. I'll get there. All right, let's go back in. All right. The next one, ladies, rate yourself. You are virginal or chaste. You understand the value of keeping your legs closed and place yourself to a higher moral sexual standard than your girlfriends. You probably don't even contemplate the significance of this mindset and hold the perspective, I don't sleep with men who don't love me. Ladies, again, just like men control access to marriage and relationships, we control access to who we let, you know, into our bodies. And that's just, it's just, it is what it is. Now, if you are the one amongst your friends that's always got a new titillating story to tell after the weekend, I don't know what that says about you. Or if you're the one who's a little bit more reserved, men that are husband minded don't want their wife to be community property. What would you add, Lucy?
And look at, what the movies and the entertainment industry sells you. They sell you, Sex in the City, all these women having all these different, casual encounters with random men. And that is so unhealthy. And it's because, entertainment, the movies, music, it's kind of like a brainwashing. And for whatever reason, they've been wanting to remove those values from, the Western society for a reason. Because then society falls when you have all of these women not having any responsibility for doing what they want to do, having children without a responsibility to giving them a father. I mean, society falls, and we're seeing, a little bit of that right now.
So true. I think there's about four more. Lucy, do you want to do a speed round? Are you okay to finish these up? Okay, let's
Let's
go
finish
back
them.
in. All right. So where were we? We talked about being chaste. You have morals and aren't afraid to be unpopular over bolstering them against the opposition. You're okay with having an unpopular opinion and losing some friends because you feel strongly in your convictions and believe in good versus evil. You strongly take stances against causes and ideas you believe to be evil. I'll combine the next two. You love the thought of being a mother and view children as a blessing. You may or may not like caring for other people's kids, but you naturally desire to have your own children someday. It's one of your biggest goals in life. Now, I can hear the modern women screaming, the professional boss babe women running for the hills, and that's totally fine. Not everybody is a mother, but just like we teach in the wife lessons, and you can go to teachablemomentswithmaggie.com, it's on available on demand. Being a wife is a calling. There's something about you since you were little that you knew you wanted to be part of an intact family, that you wanted a husband, that you wanted to be a wife. And even though you didn't know how any of that worked, that's how you saw yourself. And those were the decisions you took. Same thing, like being a mother. You were just naturally nurturing, whether you had younger siblings or you babysat or something. There was something about you that lit up around kids. There was something about you that wanted your own one day. If that's not naturally who you are, be honest and don't try to trap a man who really wants a family when you know that's what you don't want, but you just want his resources. What would you add, Lucy?
Yeah, and I think one of the things, I don't know if she talks about this, but discernment is really important. Jurgen, that was a good one. Uh, So one of those, she talked about being set in your convictions and showing your morals and beliefs. But I think that part of that is being discerning when you share, when you stand on that hill that you're going to go battle with. Again, um, there's a time and a place to do that, and I think that we as women have to be careful about where we share that information because not everything is a fight. Everybody's going to have an opinion about things that you don't agree with. So, you're not going to be arguing with somebody that already has an idea of, something that you're not going to change their minds. Yeah, you can believe on certain things, but why are you going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to have people come at you just because you want either go viral by a comment that you make, a YouTube channel that you make, presenting controversial information, especially when you're young. In your older year, like, I'm 58 now, I'm brave enough to share my life and my wisdom sometimes, and maybe not so wisdom, but again, you gotta pick a time and a place to share that stance that you have, because not everything requires you to show that you stand strong for a cause, because you should be busy taking care of your child, your husband, and your immediate environment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, ladies. There's a reason why we say this content isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Lucy and I hopefully live by example just in this space when we say we are very passionate about marriage and family. We are very passionate about the older women teaching the young. So we have created a community, and the men protect and support us here where we can share our passions and our convictions. But we take this to work? Do we stand on the sidewalk and yell at people? Do we pick fights? No, we don't do that. So again, read the room and choose wisely, because especially ladies, since this is about qualities to be a wife, remember you represent your husband. So don't pick fights and get yourself into skirmishes and back and forth that he's going to have to come rescue you from. Stop what he's doing to come clean up your mess. All right. And Roddy says, wow, being a wife is a calling. I've never heard that before. Absolutely. We teach that in the wife lessons. So ladies, you got to ask yourself, and if you're not a wife, that's fine. Just be honest with that man and be honest with yourself. All right, let's do the next two together. You're conversational. Shout out to Maggie. I'll pay you to stop talking. Anyway, you're a master of quick wit. You're a master of wit. Quick with a clever remark or playful tease, but never cutting or cruel. Your humor dances on the edge of sharp and warm, making people laugh while feeling seen. You listen intently, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but genuinely tuning into what they're saying. Your eyes light up at the right moments, and you'll toss in a thoughtful question that shows you're right there with them. Your charm comes from confidence, not arrogance. You're adaptable, able to banter with a stranger, debate with a friend, or soothe someone with quiet empathy, all while seeming effortless. And then, okay, this is the last one. You have good hygiene and practice fashion sense. You always smell pleasant when you leave your home and make an effort to avoid looking inappropriately frumpy. Dressing well doesn't annoy you. Instead, it feels like fun. Creative outlet to showcase your best self to the world when you walk out the front door. If you are most or even half of these things, congratulations. You're in great shape for dating and marriage. In writing this, I aim to give you few ladies the confidence to get out there and be more proactive in the dating market. Many miserable and foolish people like to humble desirable women because they want to dim their light, so to speak. And if you believe them, you won't bother trying to date because they've convinced you you're less of a catch than they are. Perhaps you're beautiful and never realized it, or are more personable than you first contemplated. If you're most of the things listed above, I would start striking up conversations with men you're attracted to a bit more. So again, the link is in the description. This one is are you a highly desirable woman for marriage from Ali D. You all know her as Real Femme Sapien, but I love that. You already know the conversational piece. Never met a stranger. Actually, I was offered money to start talking once, but that's another story for another time. But yes, and that hygiene, I think it all goes back to self care, ladies. Like Mr. President will tell you, nothing told me, nothing about me should remind you, nothing about you should remind me of a dude. So, ladies, I know it's kind of trendy right now to wear like baggy, oversized, masculine, dude kind of unisex clothing. Maybe if you're lounging around the house, I think you can even have elegant loungewear and be comfortable. Ask Lucy. You can travel comfortable, right? You don't have to look like a dude when you're flying or on the bus or anything like that. But looking forward to being as pretty as possible, looking forward to, accentuating being a woman, I think it's just naturally attractive to men and they like that. And you never know where a conversation could lead you. What would you add, Lucy?
Thank you, Kilis, for sharing the link to the article. So yeah, I mean, those items were just so practical, and and you don't really need to spend a lot of money to look cute. If you're young, just your youth makes you way above and beyond anything. So you don't need to spend a lot of money. You don't need to, be just out there and have all of these nose rings and piercings and tattoos and to call attention. In fact, nowadays to not have any of those things makes you special because you're not following the trend. And that's what I keep telling my nieces. So hopefully it'll stick because again, society and the news and the movies and the songs and the music will are telling these young people something completely different, and unfortunately they would rather listen to that than the older women saying, you know what, we've been there, we've seen it, we've done it, and we're giving you this counseling for a reason because we love you, we care about you, and we want you to be successful if you want to have a successful married life.
That is the key. So, again, this article, are you a highly desirable woman for marriage? So, if you are young, if you take care of yourself, if you have good conversational skills, if you respect money, if you come from an intact family, if you're healthy, if you have all of those things, or like she said, even half of those things, you are so far ahead. So, for the ladies who aren't, if you scored yourself low on this, what are the things that you can change? We can't change our age. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you're not 24, but what can you change? Can you do better? What did she say? Respecting men. And there was one in there about uh, conflict resolution. Can you learn how to communicate instead of shouting, instead of going from 0 to 10 just as soon as somebody says something that you don't like? Can you listen and not interrupt people? So go through this list, ladies. I think it's great. Thank you so much, Ali, for allowing us to react to this. And again, ladies, if you want marriage, it's going to mean that you're going to have to be okay being that salmon swimming upstream and going your own way. And I'll leave you all with something that our keynote speaker, our guest speaker, Mr. President, said at the finishing school graduation. Don't act like where you come from. Act like where you're going. All right. So think about this. If you want to be seen as a wife, start doing those things now that the men that you want say are valuable. So if you see that in the chat and they're saying, yes, absolutely. If she's argumentative, it's a non starter. Then try to fix that if marriage is what you want. If not, you can do your own thing. That's totally fine. All right. Lucy, what would you say to close this out?
Thank you all for commenting in the chat. We've had a pretty, lively chat. And again, I think, are we going to meet on Saturday? Do we have a live stream on Saturday?
I'm traveling again.
Okay, so no Saturday live stream. So I'm gonna send you maybe something later on for Wednesday. Are we live streaming on Wednesday again?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's it. I think that we are good. Are we going to share anything about our event or no?
You all can let us know in the chat. Do you want? We did one last year when Lucy was in Atlanta. Do you all want a recap of the finishing school weekend? Maybe I'm thinking Lucy, once all of the professional pictures have come in, they started to trickle them out, but maybe once all the ones have come down, we can go through and choose some of the pictures and do a recap.
Mhm.
I don't know if we have any students in the chat. If you think that'd be good or not, I'm fine either way. It was an amazing experience, and we're planning something very special for next year. And again, we highly encourage the married women to connect with us. Gillis says, yes, please. Those are too fun. All right. So you all like to see what we did. And I'll just say this. We did 4 events in 3 days. We will not do that again. Next year is going to be a lot more chill. All right.
All right.
So thank you so much. And thank you to the International
Yes.
Quiet Forum with $10 support. We appreciate you all so much. Hopefully you learned something. I'm sorry. The condemned says, of course we want that recap. What kind of a question is that? Okay, yes, sir. So no stream on Saturday. I'm traveling to Palm Springs, California. So stay connected if y'all want to see. I've been invited to a Google Pixel event, but we will see you all in another week on Wednesday. Until then, we will say
Adios.
adios.